Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joshsnipes, and today, if you're looking for operator guides, map guides, tips and tricks, or videos like this one, make sure to stay tuned, hit the like button, and you guys, that's all the support I need. That's all the support I need from you, just a little tap of the like button. Now, though, without further ado, today's video is going to be taking a look at sort of what makes a great Siege player. Now, if you couldn't tell from the title, it's obviously what today's topic is. And one of the biggest things to me is that I think there are 6 pillars that you can kind of go over that make a great Siege player. Some people are a little bit better in other areas than others, and that's kind of the idea, is that if you have all 6 of these, I really do feel like you'll be better off than probably 90% or so of the community. And that just kind of goes because of the way that these are laid out. But I hope it all makes sense. I hope that you guys get an idea of what I'm talking about here with making a great Siege player. Now let's hop right in to today's topic. Now, I quickly want to point out that one of the key things of this whole video is that these do overlap. The aspects of these different pillars, they do overlap, and I feel like if you've played the game long enough, you understand what I mean and what I'm talking about when I say that they overlap. They kind of go hand in hand. Different aspects of them could be under one category versus the other, but I'm just going to lay it out this way, so understand that I know that some of these do overlap or might even look a little bit better in one aspect, but bear with me. I just want to make this easy to understand for newbies and sort of intermediate players who don't necessarily know all of these things just quite yet. Now, the 6 pillars are game sense, experience, mechanical skill, reaction time, strategy/counter strategy, and computer specifications. I didn't put console on here because I'm not really sure if the Xbox One S versus the Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro or anything like that. I don't know if they really play any different in terms of how they play Rainbow Six Siege. I know the hardware is different, but I'm not 100% sure. So I just include it on this list. Plus, with computer specifications, there's so many tiers that I feel like it was a better comparison than if I just used console. Now, when we're talking about game sense, we're basically trying to understand how a map normally plays out. And when I say how a map plays out, think about consulate. When you go consulate top floor, you have 2 sides that you're normally going to push from. You're either going to push from the console office side, or you're going to try to get into admin and push from that side. Most people understand that and they know that. So when you play around those sort of ideas and you play, this is how I'm going to attack this, the enemy team, the defending team, will normally rotate or sort of peek where they think that you're going to be coming from. That whole idea of map flow and understanding where players normally play and how players normally play is called game sense. And so when I'm talking about game sense, that's what I am referring to. And it's essentially just trying to be one step ahead of your opponent, or what you think is one step ahead of your opponent. Doesn't always work that way. But a lot of times when you're playing this sort of, you'll hear people say, you got to have good game sense. You got to understand the game. And so understanding, hey, this is where someone might peek from, this is where someone might even roam to or sort of late flake onto, those sort of things is very necessary, especially as you get more and more advanced in this game. And a lot of it comes down to, if you watch pros play or pros stream, if you watch their games or you just actually just watch them in their stream, you'll tend to see a difference in play style compared to, say, the average player like me or you, who most of the time, we just kind of do whatever we think we feel like, versus the pros. They'll pre-fire spots. They'll make sure to double check, triple check spots because they have an idea that, hey, when you're playing at this high of a level, this is where people normally play. And people tend to really, honestly, they kind of do the same thing because it's kind of hard to venture out from what you actually know in the game and trying to do new things, especially once you've gotten far enough in this game where you've gotten 100, 200, 300 levels, you have a ton of hours in the game, you tend to do the same things over and over and over, especially from round to round and from site to site. You tend to do the same things. So if you start noticing that you're getting into these habits when you're going, and it's more so habits about how you move throughout the map, not necessarily like droning every single time. That's a good habit to have. But if you notice yourself sort of, you go and rotate to these exact spots on every single round, you're going to get caught in that when you're trying to rotate there and the team capitalizes on that. So game sense, really, it's just understanding the flow of maps, understanding how players normally play, and being able to take advantage of those things, especially when it comes to pre-fires, you feel like someone's going to flank. Now, when I'm talking about experience, I am talking about literal hours in the game and time that you've put into learning this game. When you play this game at the beginning, you have no idea what any of the operators do. You don't know anything about the maps. You don't have any real control of how the recoils work. and you just don't have an understanding of the game. And that's totally fine, because that's how when you ever pick up a new game, that's how you are. But putting your hours into the game, and especially good hours, because just playing casual every day, all day, you'll start to understand operators and stuff like that, but you don't understand how the game is played at the higher levels. So hopping into ranked, hopping into a comp setting, that's a great way to gain a valuable experience. And I'm talking about experience again, time in the game, actual time in the game. And I think that a big part of this is that when you put more experience into the game, you start to kind of see everything. Because you've probably heard multiple people go, wow, I didn't even know you could peek from that. Or I didn't even know you could hold that angle. Or I didn't know you could do X, Y, Z. When you play a long time in this game, you start to see a lot and a lot and a lot more. And that's the important part of experience, is that you get experience with different scenarios, different strategies, different sort of implications of things. Like if they reinforce this wall, this is what they're planning on doing. If they don't, then this is what they plan on doing. So those kinds of things, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about experience. And sort of getting an understanding of all of that stuff is super necessary to advancing in your knowledge and advancing in your levels and the ranks and all of that above. Now the third one, mechanical skill. I'm going to separate mechanical skill and reaction time, just because I feel like mechanical skill is something you can work on. Reaction time you can work on, but at some point you sort of do plateau in your reaction time. So mechanical skill, when I'm referring to this, I'm referring to the ability for you to actually, you know, aim down your sights, flick to people, and sort of the way that you move and the way that you're able to shoot people and keep recoil control and those sorts of things. Crosshair placement is also a big one. It's a very practiced mechanical skill, and I feel like the better you get at working on your mechanical skill, the better you will be in the game. And the nice thing is, a lot of times mechanical skill translates from FPS to FPS. So if you watch someone like Shroud, who plays at a very, very extremely high level in CSGO, he actually does pretty good inside Siege, because sure, not everything's the same, but the tendencies and things like that and the aiming, that a lot of that is exactly the same, because you keep your crosshairs at a certain head level, you keep your crosshairs at a crouch level, something of that nature. Those are things that you learn as you go and something you can work on. Also, the ability to sort of trace things through a wall. So say a person walks behind a doorway, walks through a doorway, being able to understand where they might be running, because say if they keep going the exact same speed as they run through a doorway, you could pre-fire them through the wall or just keep shooting as they're running through the doorway and you start to shoot into the wall. Those kinds of things is mechanical skill, and I feel like it's a very learned technique, and it's a very learned skill, but I feel like you can definitely do it in some drills, or if you do aim trainers, or honestly just run through T-Hunt, practice doing only headshots, just one tapping headshots, and you'll get there in no time. Now, reaction time is a little different from mechanical skill. I feel like reaction time is sort of a piece of mechanical skill, because being able to flick, being able to react to things very quickly, that whole thing is very important in mechanical skill, but I separated it out because every one of us has a different reaction time. You have to process what you're seeing, and then you have to actually execute on what your plan is. All of that happens within milliseconds of information actually being visual to you. And so a big part of it is that you can practice reaction time. It just takes a while, because you kind of have to get used to the game first, and then as you start to understand the game, you'll start to understand how to react, and that's part of the experience also. But reaction time is something that can be worked on. I mean, reaction time in general can be worked on, like at the gym or in game when you're practicing flicking and things of that nature. So outside and inside game, your reaction time can be increased, but there is a point of plateau where you can't really get past it unless you're putting way more time into it, which it depends on what level you play at. But if you want to play at the highest level, having a good or great reaction time is super necessary, because you're going to play with really, really good computers, so you'll have even a better chance to react to things quicker. Now, strategy and counter strategy. This is sort of the thing that I feel like if you have an understanding of how someone sets up a site, say if you're attacking and you're trying to drone it out, you're going to understand what their game plan is, because you go, oh, I've seen this strategy before used in XYZ game, and I know how to pick it apart, because that's the biggest thing, is being able to pick something apart, especially when you're strategizing your attack, or if you're planning on counter-stratting whatever the defense has set up. And that's the biggest part of strategy / counter-stratting, is having the knowledge of what to do in this situation, having an idea of what you needs to be done, or how do you need to progress through your different phases that you run through with your team. So if you're playing, especially in a higher level comp level, having a strategy ahead of time when you're going from site to site, that is so necessary because you can really take control of how a round plays out if you have a set plan in place. And obviously you got to adapt where you need to, but if you have a set plan in place that your whole team can sort of play off of, that is so much easier to play with than if you're just everyone's trying to figure out what they want to do in the middle of a round, and then you lose all of that time, and it's way less efficient to sort of not have a plan in place ahead of time. Counter-stratting is something that really comes down to having more experience in the game and understanding how a different strategy usually plays out. Once you understand that, you can pick the different pieces that you need to counter. So getting an idea is, again, it's part of experience. So that mishmash, again, I really do think though that if you can get a planned strategy in place for your team, especially if you're playing in comp, it's so much easier to play with than if you just kind of wing it and hope for the best. Now, the last one that I wanted to talk about today was computer specifications. Linus Tech Tips actually did a pretty good video showing that you don't necessarily have a difference in player model movement, but if you are playing on 144 versus 60 FPS versus 240 FPS, you're going to see a difference. Whether or not you actually see individual frame differences, the game will feel different. And you will see player models, if you're playing on 240 FPS and you actually have the computer to support it, you will see people faster by milliseconds, but you will see people faster, be able to react faster if you have all of those frames at your availability. Now, there is kind of a point of diminishing returns where after 140 FPS, you don't really get too much versus the jump from 60 to 140. That's a lot bigger than 140 to 240. But I still feel like if you can get more and more frames, especially if you have a crazy computer, I feel like that's so much better for your gaming ability. And that's why a lot of pros end up getting these crazy computers, is it makes the gameplay a lot better. And I feel like overall, if you can run all of those frames smoothly and easily, it's gonna make you have a lot easier time when you're playing and trying to gun in ranked or in comp or whatever it might be. Now, let me know what you guys think of all this. This is basically just going over what I think the 6 key components are of a great Siege player. If you need me to do a follow-up video or need me to clarify something, make sure to leave a comment down below, and I will try to answer that. This wasn't really supposed to explain to you how to get all of these things, because I feel like most of them are self-obvious. But if you have any question though, seriously, let me know down in the comments below. I love all of you guys. Thank you so much for all the support I've been getting in the last couple of weeks. It's been absolutely insane to see. But without further ado, that's going to wrap things up for today. And this is going to be Joshsnipes signing off.